I learned everything there is possibly to learn about Rick Rubin. This is what I found. Hi friends, my name is Dylan. I go by IYKO. I am a full-time software engineer, part-time music producer. As always, my goal is to help creatives live a more creative life. Part 1, Rick's daily rituals. Rick's morning routine goes something like this. He wakes up and he gets into the sun as early as possible, even notably mentioning that he likes to do this while completely naked. And listen, Rick's a pretty interesting guy, but I definitely did not expect that. He likes to take his time. He starts his day slowly and completely avoids work at all costs within the first couple hours. His work day and peak working hours go from about 1 to 5 or 6 p.m. depending on the day. And I love this model of work because I think it perfectly falls in line with Cal Newport's philosophy of deep work. In deep work, Cal talks about how most humans aren't able to do real work for any longer than 4 to 5 hours in a given day. I think we can learn so much from Rick's process here and realize that some of the most high performers among us in music production only really work 4 to 5 hours a day. The days of being in the studio for 12, 14, 16 hours are completely gone, and it's not something that works in the modern day. We get into his evening routine, and Rick is notoriously known for wearing his red light filtering glasses. This is not something I've adopted just yet, but I think it's very important to note he completely lacks stimulation in his evenings. Evenings are meant to transition away from work, and he avoids taking work calls at all costs, and he likes to spend 99% of his evenings home with his family. This is a theme of his entire post-work day. After eating dinner with his family, he's asleep by around 10, and then the next day begins anew. But these are not the only habits that Rick has in his day. One of the top things that he usually talks about is how he manages his inputs. And what he means by this is he avoids ultra processed foods or very processed foods. I think this is very noteworthy because I believe that our output as music producers is really a function of our inputs. If we put garbage in, garbage is going to come out. If we are healing our body and eating how we are supposed to, and then also taking care of our body, mind, and our spirit, good things will result out of that. Whether you believe it or not, Rick believes that everyone is a creator, that inherently by just how we go about and act in the world, we are leading and living creative lives. He believes that living life as an artist is a lot less about what you produce and much more about how you interact and interface with the world. It's a way of being, as he mentions in his book. Rick's health and fitness routine is another thing that is very notable. Not only does he take care of his mind, but also he takes care of his body. I constantly try to dispel the myth of the tortured artist on this channel because, as I said before, your output is a function of your inputs. Waking up in the morning hungover after a long night out is not going to be conducive to making great art. I think this is one of the secrets to Rick's success in the music industry and as a music producer as a whole. Recently, he was on the Huberman Lab and he talked about how he has only drank alcohol once in his entire life, and that also other substances, whether legal or illegal, are things that he's never really found interest in because all of these states he believes he can access without the use of anything external. The last key piece to Rick's daily routine is meditation. Meditation is an integral part of Rick's life. He has been an avid meditation practicer for over 45 years and prefers the form of transcendental meditation. And he began with transcendental meditation at the age of just 14 years old. Rick cites the quote, "Every time you meditate, it is like depositing in a bank. Meditation isn't just an act, it's a lifelong practice that changes your interaction with the world." Meditation helps foster the practice of responding to stimuli in the world. It gives you the ability to respond rather than react. There is a moment of time between something that happens and how you respond to it. And in that moment is where meditation comes in, and it allows us to create difference between the stimulus and how we respond to something.
That was an overreaction.
And I think this is very important for fostering the awareness that is required in the creative process. Next, Rick's creative mindset. Rick believes that innovative ideas only arise when you are out of your comfort zone. And I have found this to be the case in my own music production. When I am in a spot of applying certain limitations to my creative process, I find that I am the most creative. Whether I try to make a track around just a single sample pack, or if I only use one synth to design an entire song around, these limitations help scope down the decisions that I have to make in the creative process and lead to more creative pieces of work. Rick believes that writer's block is stemmed from the fear of judgment, either internal or external. But the best way to combat writer's block is to limit your creative palette, like I had just mentioned. Limiting your creative palette can drive creativity. The final piece to Rick's mindset around creativity is the idea that the audience must come last. We make art in this world for ourselves first, and we share it with a wider audience. He believes doing the reverse of that and making art for your audience is not art anymore, it's commerce.
I say no, it's not art.
When you are designing a product to solve a problem for your end user, that is essentially capitalism. That is not artwork. Rick sees himself as a professional tastemaker rather than a professional music maker, which I think is a very interesting lens to look at music production. I remember when I first learned that Rick Rubin doesn't have any hard technical skills, whether that is mixing and mastering or knowing how to use all of the electronics within a studio. Rick really just has an ear for music that he has developed over the course of his entire life through all the practices that I have mentioned before. Rick believes that an artist's sensitivity is what makes them such a great artist, that they have finely tuned antennae to listen to messages from the universe.
I look inward and try to focus on what do I feel, what am I seeing, in the hopes that by sharing what's going on in me, it maybe resonates with someone else.
The last piece of this is Rick's advice for creatives. The best way to produce a piece of music is to start with a draft and get that done as soon as possible. Don't worry about the fine, minute details until you have a finished product. And this is a piece that I've found so integral to my own creative process. Focusing on the outcome of my music undermines the entire creative process.
I can't predict what someone else would like, and I don't think anybody can. So if I'm authentically true to myself, that's the best chance of someone else liking something.
Rick uses the mental model of daily journal entries for creating his music. You wouldn't judge any one particular journal entry as if you were writing in a diary. He views all of his works as just diary entries from that point and moment in time. This helps completely remove the self-judgment piece of this, because it really doesn't make sense to judge a journal entry. This is just an expression of yourself in this moment in time. And if you find yourself struggling with self-doubt, struggling with inspiration, or struggling to be creative in general, I have a video that is perfect for you where I outline 5 techniques to be 100 times more creative. Check it out.